The Christian movie we are reviewing today is Unsung Hero, a true lifetime story that happened in the Smallbone family. The movie starts with the Smallbone family detained at the customs office as they are entering the United States of America from Australia. The officer suspects something is not right. David Smallbone is detained in one room, while his wife Helen Smallbone and the kids are also detained in another. As the officer was asking Helen Smallbone what her name is, she froze. But her mind traveled 15 hours earlier to when the family was still on the plane. She was seated at the window. But in the movie, we are taken far back beyond the 15 hours to see what exactly happened to the Smallbone family that led them to the current state. We were taken to the time when David Smallbone was a renowned concert promoter. He's among the top in Australia, booking stars like Amy Grant. David even considered promoting concerts of some artists like Eddie DeGarmo, who are not as famous as a step backward. His friend Art tried to convince David to take on a smaller artist who wanted his services, but David would not. He considered it a setback. Nevertheless, Art handed David a CD for Eddie DeGarmo's music and encouraged him to just listen to it. Life was good for the Smallbone family as far as David's wife Helen could remember while seated on the plane. We are brought back to the 15 hours earlier on the plane. She tucks in her son who was sleeping right next to her, then moves backward in the other seat to tuck in his other son Ben. While Helen was tucking in Ben, memories came back of the time when everything was good and David was busy all the time. One night, her son asks her why Daddy never tucks them in. Helen looked at the son and told the son, Daddy is living the dream. What's your dream, Mom? My dream is to have a great big family. So you have achieved your dream, Mom. Helen paused for a bit and just responded with a good night to the son. Then she walked straight to the office room of her husband David, who was pacing up and down trying to put this big concert together, pulling funds from all different places so he can make sure that this concert is a success. He had projections of how this concert is going to go down. He had imagined it's going to be so big and so successful. David was preparing for Amy Grant concert in Australia, a tour across Australia, and David was investing his own money into this concert. A receipt was being printed to show how much David was investing in the concert, and it was more than $1 million. But David was sure he will make this money back. When Helen saw how invested her husband was into this, she got worried because this investment meant that they are putting in more than they can afford to lose as a family without getting hurt or thrown under the bus. Helen tried to warn David that they would be losing a lot. David assured Helen that the business is not always 100% sure deal, but this is also a once-in-a-lifetime deal. Despite her worries, Helen chose to trust her husband on this. David did his best to promote this concert the best way he knows how. When the day of the concert came, things didn't turn out as David had projected. People didn't turn up in big numbers as he had anticipated. The seats were shown more empty than full. There were a handful of people, including family members, who showed up for concerts, and most seats were left unoccupied. After David faced this tragic loss, David tried to apologize to Amy Grant. Amy Grant assured him everything will be alright. But then Amy Grant's movements are managed by the manager, and the manager was not having any of it. The manager insisted to David when David was trying to explain to him later on after the concert on the phone call why things didn't turn out so good. His expectation was they would share the losses. The manager assured David as much as he understands that the economy is hard in this time, he still has a crew to pay, the people who came along with the artist to perform and everyone else who worked around the clock during this concert and tour. The manager assured David that the money will still have to be paid. It sunk in. David realized that he's going to bear this loss all by himself. And he told the manager, "But I'll be losing everything." And the manager said, "Well, you signed the contract." Since he had signed the contract, he was bearing all the losses from the failed concert. David got this news while he was coming from the concert back to his family and hometown. He reached home, enters the house. The house looked empty, but his home looked so luxurious, with pools outside, not just one, but pools. His home looked huge and very luxurious, with a pool outside, huge balcony, and very spacious. When David opened the doors of his house, he called unto his wife Helen and called out for the kids. Helen responded when she's far off and told him to come find her in the backyard. Only for David to reach the backyard, and the whole family and the friends had gathered to surprise him. Apparently, it was his birthday celebration, and he did not even remember that. They surprised him, but he was still hung up on the news about the money that he's going to lose, that is bound to change the whole family, not for the better. Everybody was celebrating around him, celebrating him for the years he has achieved, but he was giving the puzzled, lost look, even though he kept responding to everyone who was talking to him. A time came for David to sit down and open the gifts that the family and friends had given him. He opened the gift, tried to live in the moment, but the wife was noticing something is quite off. David's father gave a very touching speech, acknowledging that his son David is overly ambitious, maybe too ambitious for him or even the wife, but he also reminded him, "But you always get it to work. You always get things together." With this, the birthday commenced and it was completed. There was always someone around the family filming these memories. One of the kids was filming the memories of his dad's birthday. Later on, we see David in his room. Helen comes to him, asks him, "What is wrong? Tell me." David was hesitant. He tried to deflect, but Helen was not having any of it. Eventually, David decided to tell Helen, "It's the tour, and we're going to lose $500,000 from it." Helen was struck. Remember how David had promised him that after this tour they will make a lot of money, that they'll be able to spend time together as a family because he was away all the time. Helen would try to remind him that the family needs him, his children miss him. And David had assured her that after this concert, they'll get a getaway as a family. But now, with this, Helen was not ready for this, froze a bit, and then ran out of the room. We are brought back to the plane. Remember, she's having all these memories while on the plane. And now she's running out of the plane to the bathroom. She's pregnant. During the time of the birthday, when they were surprising David at home, Helen's surprise to David was a baby clothes to announce the news that they are having another baby. So Helen, during all this time, she's carrying a little baby. She rushes to the bathroom while on the plane. She vomits and sits there for a bit in the toilet, wondering how things went so wrong and how they came to this point. We go back to the time when things were falling apart in the Smallbone family. After David telling Helen of how they're going to be losing $500,000 as a family, David did not stop there. He was down, he felt defeated, but he picked himself up and decided to call every person in the industry that he knows to look for some other work, some more jobs, some more gigs, something to help him get out of this rat hole. And after losing everything, David now decides to call up Eddie DeGarmo. Are you still looking for someone to work with for your tour in Australia? Eddie DeGarmo informed him that they found someone who actually believed in them. And this hit hard for David, since he was now at rock bottom in the business. When he was doing well, he was not willing to take on small artists. So that conversation didn't really go well as he planned. David didn't give up though. He made all kinds of calls to all different kinds of people in the industry, but nothing came up. No work, no money. Odds were not looking good for David. Eventually, he looked at a poster of Cameron and decided to call up the management in the US to find out if there is any kind of opening that he could join and work with. He got an opening in Nashville. When he broke this news to Helen of the whole family or him alone going to Nashville, Helen was opposed to this. David suggested that maybe he can go work and then come back. Helen informed him, family does not break up. If we're going as a family. We cannot leave the kids behind. The idea of making all their kids live the life they are accustomed to, separate with the rest of their family and friends, to go all the way across the world for an opportunity that is not so assured, was not looking appealing for Helen. Convincing Helen of how they have to grab this opportunity, because even if they choose to stay, they have no money to keep the kids in these schools. Helen told David, 2 years. In 2 years, you can figure this out, and if it's not working, we are coming back home. And this was good enough for David at this point. So they started to prepare to leave the country. When the time came for them to say goodbye to the family and everyone else, Helen told her mom, "We'll see you in 2 years." Her mom was shocked because apparently on their passports, the visas were indicating that they're going to spend to be in the US for only 6 months. Now, when Helen mentions to the mom that we'll see you in 2 years, the mom told her, "Wait, but your visas are for 6 months." Helen told her, "Well, we shall renew after 6 months." Since the mom was not so in tune with the family going, the mom believed that, probably in 6 months you will have come, you would have woken up and realized how this is not working, and you will come back home. So the mom wrote Helen a letter and letting her know that we'll be meeting again. We'll see you again in 6 months. David's father was very supportive. He believed in his children. He was also sad to see them go. The daughter of the family loved the grandfather so much. So hugs were shared, and now it was time for the Smallbone family to head to Nashville for an opportunity that seems to be awaiting David Smallbone. All these memories were coming back to Helen as she sat on the plane to the USA. And at that time, the whole family ended up landing in Los Angeles, California, the city of angels. At the US Customs Border Check Control, when the officer asked how many they are, he was shocked to hear the response: 6 kids and 2 adults. The officer continued, "Name?" The response: "Smallbone." The officer was getting even more puzzled. When David was asked what brings him to the USA, he mentioned it's to work for a record label. When he was asked how long he intends to stay, he answered the same time as the kids. David was answering 6 months, while the kids were answering 2 years. And since the visas were indicating 6 months, the officers asked them to step aside for further questioning. And now that brings us back to the time where the movie started from, when they are in the questioning room.